well, over the last half an hour or so, really. Rain coming in during our most recent GT Cup race, and that means now that we have some very difficult conditions for the drivers to deal with out on the circuit. The cars heading out on track, I would imagine, all on wet tyres. It's certainly a wet circuit that they're greeted with, and it's Hayden Chance who has got the pole position for this particular race. James Lay, the champion-elect within the SR3, starts alongside him, with Ben Casely and Chris. In fact, that is a different grid, isn't it? There's been an amended grid. Chance and Casely then, row 1, followed by Preed and Zalonka on row number 2. Row 3, we will find Tommy Gore and Peter Tyler, with John McLeod and Mark Williams lining up together on the 4th row of the grid. 5th row then we will have the next couple of cars. That will be Lowe and Headlam, with McAlpine and Yang on the 6th row of the grid together. Row 7 for Davis and Jason Rishover, and then we will have Thompson in line on the next row. David Spencer Thompson, that is, the last of the SR3s. Then into the SR1s, where Theo McCuris and Tom Wood have had some great battles all weekend, but it's actually Wood and Ockenden who have the front row of this grid, with then Christian Brooks and Ashley Gaunt next in line. They will be followed by the number 95 of Oscar Joyce and the 87 of Jack Lees, with George Nutton and Bradley Gaunt then on the next row of the SR1 grid. At the very back of the field, Michael Williams and Darren Nutton. That I agree with. Everything else on that grid was different from the grid that even TSL Timing are publishing, so I think there's been a couple of amendments maybe to that grid as we've got into the race. They're getting an extra green flag lap because of the change of conditions, so don't worry, the race hasn't started yet, and that gives myself, Andy McEwen and Piers Pryor a bit more time to build up to what should be an entertaining race here, I think, with a slightly mixed up grid, very mixed up track conditions. I don't think there's any doubt about it now though, Piers. Wet tyres the way to go. The rain really now starting to come down pretty heavily, based on the state of your jacket anyway.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more damp than I was for the commentary earlier on, but no, just finishing off the GT Cup race there, and it was damp and then drying and then damp, but it's certainly raining out there. Big raindrops. It looks like it's set to stay as well, so no worries during this 30-minute race about tyre choice. I think it's going to be wet all the way through, but tyre pressures will be critical. Some of the teams may have thought it might be a bit drier, so they might have gone a bit lower with pressures, which will mean you're slower at the start of the race, but potentially a bit faster at the end. And other teams will have gone, no, it's going to be full wet, let's pump the tyres up, get some good grip in the car, and maybe pull away at the front of the field. And that will be influenced by not only how wet you think the track is going to be, but also where you are on the grid. Because if you're at the front, you often just want to get away and get out of the trouble, and then deal with the tyres going off later on.
There's always been this sort of urban myth within motorsport about how Donington is particularly slippery in the wet. There's some story about jet fuel or something like that, but now it's been resurfaced. Drivers actually that I've spoken to have said there's a lot of grip even in the wet conditions around here.
I never bought the jet fuel and that is sort of hocus pocus, but the circuit used to be very slippery in the wet, that was no doubt, but that was because it was very close-knit tarmac, and obviously it was used quite a lot as well, whereas now over the winter resurfaced with a much more open net tarmac, so it has a lot more micro channels for the water to sit down below the surface, whereas before it sort of sat on top. And is that Ben Casely?
I think it's Hayden Chance. No, it can't be, can it? It might be Casely then in the 53. It was one of the front runners. I thought I saw someone slowing. Yeah, there is Hayden Chance. We don't have Ben Casely, I believe, on the front row of the grid. So yeah, well spotted, Piers. So he's got a drama before the race even gets underway. So
it looks like actually there was a hand up. Hayden Chance had his hand up with the going round again signal from karting. So I don't know whether we've been told we're going again. We'll keep you posted. But anyway, everyone's getting ready to go. Safety car.
So the race time just started. They're not actually at the start line yet, but the race time just started. Then we went safety car. Now the times have been wiped off the timing screen. I don't know what's going on, everybody. The time's now gone back to 30 seconds. I really don't know. I don't think anyone quite knows. The safety car's staying out.
Yes,
right, okay.
That's probably for Ben Casely's stricken car at the exit of the Fogarty S's. We're now going green under safety car conditions. So I think it's just going to be an extended safety car start by the looks of it. There is Ben Casely, unfortunately breaking down. We don't know what it is for the moment. He's just stopped on circuit, so that could be one of a number of things. But disappointing because he's been one of the consistent front runners in this championship. and it would have been good to see his pace in these wet conditions, the first wet conditions this race weekend here at Donington Park. So you know, these cars normally, you see them out going very, very fast around the corners on slick tyres in the SR3's cases, and the cut tyres on the SR1s. However, in the wet, it's a whole different ball game. They're quite stiff, so you know, rattling the curbs isn't very comfortable, and you can very easily lose control of one of these cars. Quite powerful, and no ABS, no traction control.
Yeah, which in the wet, I would imagine, really is the biggest challenge, isn't it? Because you've got to be careful under braking, really careful, particularly in that final sector, gassing it up out of the hairpins, not to spin those rear wheels. And of course, in the wet, you have to completely change your driving style and your racing line as well, to be honest, because you don't want to be running on the rubbered up, the usually grippier part of the road. That becomes really icy, slippery in the wet conditions. And if you do stray onto a slippery part of the road without those driver assists to save you, that can cause trouble.
Yeah, especially in years gone by on the old tarmac at Donington here that we spoke about just a moment ago. The wet line was very much a karting wet line, like brake off the line, go around the outside of pretty much every corner, and it was like genuinely like ice on the racing line, especially into places which are one line, like the Hagerty S's, through Coppice and McLean's. Whereas now, since it's been resurfaced, because the surface can absorb a bit more water, it can channel it away a bit better, and also that racing line has only been polished on the racing line and rubber embedded in it for less time. There's a lot more choice with racing line now. You can go inside or outside, and some of the corners actually prefer a more classical, normal dry racing line. We'll see eventually which is fastest in these radicals, because it does differ from car to car, driver to driver, session to session, depending on where the drivers have been driving and where the water has been wicked out of the surface. But I'm expecting, especially in the first couple of laps, to see some inventive racing lines. But the safety car lights are out, which probably means we're going to go for a single file race start, although I don't think everyone's got the memo.
No, there might be a bit of confusion here, but as long as they're not overtaking before the line, they should be absolutely fine. Hayden Chance and James Lay, I think, have got the message at the front of the field. They were running single file. Some of the SR1s further back are also peeling out 2x2, but I think they should now figure things out. Really interested to see what happens between Theo McKeris and Tom Wood in this race, and whether Shane Stoney can have a cleaner race after what's been a rather eventful weekend for him so far. So with 27 minutes left on the clock, leaden skies, a wet track, the rain really teeming it down on the pit straight, we go racing for the final time this weekend, and indeed this season, in the Hagerty Radical Cup UK. And look at that start from Hayden Chance. His safety car restarts yesterday were absolutely perfect, and he's continued that even in the wet conditions now this afternoon. Through Redgate Corner they will head. Chris Preen managing to keep James Lay at bay, I believe, as they rocket down through the crater curves. You can see the rooster tails of spray very much being kicked up behind the cars now as they head down towards the bottom of the hill, and unsurprisingly perhaps, Piers, no one yet braving an overtaking attempt.
Yeah, I think everyone's just feeling it out, having not done any high-speed racing laps in this circuit in these conditions. And the first person out into the unknown is Hayden Chance, but we know he's good at safety car restarts. He proved it twice in race number 1 this weekend. Oh. We were saying no one's going for a move, but there you are, the number 24 of Gore going up on the inside of Zalonka and nearly getting the move done, but looks like the Zalonka's held it around the outside. For now, they're still side by side into Coppice.
Yeah, this is where normally the outside line would be the best place to be in these conditions. That would favour Zalonka, but let's see whether Tommy Gore can make that inside work. Yes, he can. He's up into third place, I think. We can't really see through the spray, to be honest. Oh, there's been drama at McLean's, look, 95.
Oh, that's Oscar Joyce and the number 78 as well, who's doing donuts on the grass.
Ashley Gaunt.
And has now got beached, I believe, so that might be stuck there.
Safety car's out again, so that was rather predictable. I mean, the rain is biblical out at the back of the circuit. It's all of a sudden started coming down incredibly hard. Now, the problem here with all of this spray and the low visibility, some drivers might not see the safety car boards. That's why these LED lights are really useful, actually, around the Donington Park circuit. They pierce through the gloom a little bit better than a Marshall.
Oh, that's why number 41 in the barrier.
That's Bradley Gaunt. That's 3 SR1s, I think, isn't it, that have been in the wars on the restart.
And you can see he thinks he can get going again, but the grass is so wet and these cars are so low that his rear wheels are just spinning. So one thing now is all the cars will be seeing the safety car boards. I think the introduction of LED flags and lights has been one of the best for safety in the last sort of decade or two, and it means that even in tricky conditions like this, the drivers can see what's going on. But One thing that is certain is that when we're slowing down safety car conditions, these drivers in these open-top Radical SR1s will be getting very, very damp.
And that's something we forget about sometimes in open-top cars, but it can't be a pleasant experience. I'm sure you've raced in the wet back in your single-seater days, Piers. Just how unpleasant is it when you're trundling around behind the pace car?
In a single-seater, you are somewhat enclosed, so it's actually not too bad. The only place you really get wet is down on your shoulders where the belts are, and then down your back of your neck and on the top of your shoulders, because it kind of hits, runs off the back of your helmet and drips down. But in these fully open top radicals, especially at safety car speeds, which are not slow, but under 70 miles an hour certainly, you're going to get quite damp, especially considering how much rain is falling, or was falling a moment ago, because it was properly throwing it down. I think it's eased off ever so slightly over the start-finish straight, but yeah, these drivers will be getting pretty wet and probably quite cold because it's not warm out there, and what with the air rushing over your race suit, it's a bit like putting on I don't know, wet clothes and going outside for a run. You'd feel pretty gross pretty quickly, but the drivers would ignore it and carry on regardless, because the race is more important. They only have to endure it for another 23 minutes and 40 seconds.
A run? I'm not familiar. What's one of those, Piers?
It's like a walk, but fast.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like me, that, I have to say. Yeah, I mean, it must be a bit of a distraction at the very least out there. And again, these are all of the things that, as simply fans of the sport, we don't really truly understand. If we're stood trackside and it starts raining like this, we duck for cover, but the poor drivers out on track don't have that luxury at all, do they? They've got to just tough it out.
It's really strange though when it rains like this heavily. A lot of these drivers, including Oscar Joyce's car we're looking at now, I raced against Oscar Joyce a couple of years ago in karts. In karting, you get completely soaked. You actually have to wear a wetsuit, which is basically a big plastic coverall. But racing in really, really wet conditions, the unpleasantness and discomfort, you completely put it to the back of your mind, and it's almost part of the enjoyment and the sort of the immersion.
The enjoyment.
Yeah, and the immersion. These drivers will, some of the drivers will live for this sort of thing, because you have to completely put distraction to one side to focus solely on the job. And it's part of when you have a good wet race and you don't make a mistake because the stakes are so high and the margins are so fine in conditions like this, you really feel fulfilled and rewarded for your good efforts. And it's sometimes easier to do a race in the dry because it's a lot more grip, whereas in the wet, a small lock-up can mean you're in the gravel, race over, whereas a small lock-up in the dry,
Your idea of enjoyment is rather different from mine, Piers. It certainly looks like a challenge out there, that I will say. Even under safety car conditions, it's not unheard of to see drivers slipping off in this sort of weather. The safety car are actually well timed. I know it's unfortunate that some other drivers have slipped off the road, but the worst of the rain, I'm hoping now, touch wood, has sort of passed us by. It's not raining anything like as heavily as it was a bit earlier on. The track is sodden. It ain't going to dry out over the next 22 minutes, that's for sure, but at least the worst of the rain has stopped hammering down. This is giving the track's drainage system a chance to sort of drain away the worst of the surface water, because that's your worst nightmare, isn't it, really? A little bit of water they can deal with. It's when you get to the bottom of a hill, like the Craner Curves, for example, and suddenly, bang, there's a puddle. And in these kind of cars in particular, which run so low to the ground, aquaplaning can happen at a moment's notice.
Yeah, these cars, of course, running wet tyres. The wet tyres are very effective, and they can race at very, very high speeds, higher than you can imagine through wet conditions. But because they're so low to the ground and they're not very heavy cars, a puddle that doesn't often form on circuits, but a puddle or a river that runs across a circuit, like down the Craner Curves, if you hit it at the wrong angle at the wrong time, it can very quickly go from grip to I am no longer in contact with the tarmac. I am now just skating across the surface, and that is the point at which the safety car may stay out, or alternatively, the race director might call a red flag. But for now, the rain has eased off enough that I think we're going to get going as soon as this track is clear. The drivers will be looking forward to it, and we'll get a visual representation as soon as Hayden Chance puts his foot down of how much downforce these cars have as well.
Yes, you will indeed. It's definitely interesting, isn't it, to watch as the rooster tails spray up from behind the cars as they start to get up to speed. I think they've cleared the McLean's area, but I think the other car might have been off down at the old hairpin. I'm not sure whether that is still in the process of being recovered. We'll find out momentarily if the lights go out on the BMW safety car, which they haven't yet, but they may well do out on the loop. Now, the other thing to factor in to this is that this is the pit stop race, and the pit window is open. the safety car is still out. You lose a lot less time by pitting behind the safety car. So actually, we could see quite a lot of these drivers, even if the race restarts this time, which I don't think it's going to, diving into the pit lane. So we'll keep an eye on that. That could jumble the order up a little bit as well. And, well, Hayden Chance keeping a bit of a gap back to the safety car, perhaps in anticipation that he might try and sprint into the pit lane in a few seconds.
Yeah, he might go gun it and just drop the rest of the field and at least gain himself 3 or 4 seconds, which will be very, very tactical racing. Although I'm sure there's something in the rules that says you're not allowed to drop too far behind the safety car, but it would be good thinking. But that pit stop, it's not for any driver changes or anything like that. They're all single drivers as far as I'm aware in this championship, but it's just to add an extra layer of tactics and to the racing, right?
Now, are they going to come in? No, they might have to pass the pit open board once, maybe. Let's see.
Yeah, look at the pit board. Everyone's going, come in, come in. Someone's in.
Someone's in. Now, who was that? That was one of the cars. It was the 34 car, that, of David Sven Thompson. He's the only one in. Now, either he's got that absolutely right or he's misunderstood the regulations. I'm not sure whether you have to pass the pit open board once or whether you can anticipate it in this way. One of the SR1s is in too. That is Jason Richard over actually in the, we think, slightly problematic number 23 SR3, but nobody else came in. Now that would make me nervous if I was David Sven Thompson. He could have just absolutely landed upon a winning strategy, or he might have just got himself a penalty. We'll have to wait and see exactly how that's going to pan out for him.
Yes, that if it is that you're allowed to pit after a certain time, and he was after that time, then he's hit a masterstroke. But if it is you have to pass the, as you said, the board that says you are now allowed to pit in, then he may be looking at a penalty. I can see you're looking at the regulations for now, so we'll get an answer for you in just a moment. But in the meantime, the drivers at the front of the field, the drivers at the front of the field are still behind the safety car, weaving around to try and maintain any brake and tyre temperature that they can, because quite quickly these wet tyres will become stone cold. And as much as they are designed to work at a much cooler temperature range than a slick, any heat that you can get in them at this stage with the circuit this wet will be additional grip.
So, drivers may only enter the pit lane, say the regulations, after passing the displayed pit window open sign on track. That will be put out once the race time reaches 8 minutes. But should a safety car be deployed leading up to the pit window, the clerk of the course may elect to delay the pit window opening. Well, I wonder if that's what's happened, and the two that are pitted, David Sven Thompson and Jason Rishover, assumed the pit window had opened at the normal time. Maybe it hadn't. So
we won't know that, because the only people that will know if they've passed the pit open are, well, the only people that will know that the cars have passed the pit open are the clerk of the course, the person that put the board out, and the drivers on circuit. So that will remain to be seen. But for now, the safety car lights have gone out. Will we see another excellent Hayden Chance safety car restart?
Let's see. He's backing them up a bit more this time. Chris Preen is trying to stay with him, almost pulling a Verstappen here, isn't he? Pulling up alongside him as they head towards Goddard. He's been early, he's been late. When's he going to go this time? Well, Preen's dropped back actually a bit too far, and now he has gone. So Chris Preen, having gone to all of that effort to stay on Hayden Chance, as soon as he dropped back, Hayden guns it and off he goes. Straight into the pit lane. Here they all come, so the race gets underway, and the vast majority of them come into the pit lane. One car is going to carry on. That's Peter Tyler, the SR1 brigade. The majority of those, well, it's about a 50-50 split maybe as to who stays out and who comes in. I think this lot have got it right. I reckon that they had only just passed the pit window open board, and I think those that are pitting now have got it right.
You know what? If I was Hayden Chance, I probably would have just stayed out. If he knows he's got some more time, it would have been good for him just to go out and not have to think about anyone else, set some times, and maybe get some confidence, because now everyone's going out together and is going to have to find their feet at the same time, because the circuit will be different now to what it was before the safety car went out.
And Peter Tyler's got some lovely clean air, got no spray in front of him. He was going to take the restart in about 4th or 5th place, I think, so he's now got much clearer track than he would have had. This is a great strategy for Peter Tyler, actually, to stay out of trouble. Those that are pitting, like you said, they're all going to emerge from the pit lane together, trying to get up to speed, low tyre temperatures, low brake temperatures, and a wall of spray.
I think Thea Makuris in the SR1s also stayed out on the circuit.
He did.
Yeah, so I think those two might actually end up gaining a bit of time from doing that. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how they come out in the pits, and it's interesting to see what will happen. have a look at the sector time, shall we?
Yeah, let's have a look. Well, Peter Tyler's just done a personal best middle sector.
Fairly obviously.
Yes, but we have to wait until some of those who pitted to come out. But the ones that stayed out were Tyler, McCuris, McAlpine stayed out. So did James Ockenden and George Nutton as well. Jack Leese stayed out. Dan Nutton stayed out as well, and a couple of others further back. So there were only about half a dozen, well, maybe 8 or 9 drivers who haven't pitted.
Let's have a look, keep an eye on Hayden's chances middle sector, because Tyler's was a 42.2, so anything slower than that, and Tyler might be quids in here.
Yeah, of course, we don't know for sure. Well, there is Hayden Chance, and he's not the first car out of the pit lane either. Look at that. He's got traffic, so he obviously had extra time in the pit lane.
Yes.
And that's not helped him either.
But I think there is some extra time put on in regulations depending on success of previous races, so it's not a direct in and out time. They will be held for different amounts of time based on their previous results, and we'll get that information to you in a moment. But looking at the sector times, Tyler, of course, today 42.2. Let's have a Hayden Chance, or today 42.5. So yeah, it's working for him so far. Yeah, no one else. Actually, Gore did a 41.5 middle sector. So Gore is on the move at the moment.
Yes, he is. Now, the success seconds are awarded to the top 5 finishes in race 3 of each event. So the extra time to be served in this race is based upon the results from the 3rd race at the last meeting. So it doesn't actually have anything to do with what's happened so far this weekend. An extra 20 seconds for the winner of the most recent pit stop race. So it's all going to start shaking out now. Peter Tyler has stayed out. Pierre Mercuris is second, actually, the leader of the SR1 category, followed by the number 17 then in 3rd position. That is McAlpine, and he is running within the SR3. So you've got an SR3, followed by an SR1, followed by an SR3, and then we're still waiting, I think, for what should be the number 22 car next through, and that is Andy Lowe. Oh no, a spin! That's not a good place to go around, Piers.
Yeah, and that is Hayden Chance right behind him. He managed to make that. Managed to stay out of the way, and you can see how slippery it is on the grass of these cars that are nearly not coming to a stop at barely above walking pace. Luckily, he's facing downhill on the grass, so he should be able to trundle back going again. But Hayden Chance doing well to stay out of trouble there.
That was Chris Headlam in the number 5, who was directly ahead of Hayden Chance. So that was a big moment for him. Hayden Purple now in the 1st sector, but understandably backed off in the middle sector. So Tommy Gore has now got the fastest middle sector time. Tommy also a driver who's made a pit stop.
Yeah, I think that was a classic example of what you mentioned earlier on, which was as soon as you get a bit of aquaplaning, a place where you're not normally actually having to worry about the limit of grip, which is, you know, McLean's and Schwantz. Not McLean's, it's Starkey's and Schwantz. Those are normally easily flat out in the drive for these cars, but in the wet, much more of a corner, and hit it at the wrong angle, the puddle at the wrong angle, or maybe he clipped the curb on the inside and that sent him round.
Indeed so. Right, then we've got more to the pit lane now. So we've got Theo Mercuris is in, McAlpine in, Lowe is in, Darren Nutton is in as well. There goes Mark Williams coming towards us, followed by Hayden Chance. So Hayden Chance picking up places now as others start to pit. Tommy Gore has set the fastest lap though, a 1:44.1. Gore is a few places up the road from Hayden Chance and was nearly 2 seconds quicker than him on that lap. We saw where some of that delay came for Hayden, the race 1 winner of the weekend. James Lay, of course, victorious in race 2. Could Tommy Gore now start to be putting himself into a race-winning position as well? He's looking good in these conditions.
Yeah, I think in this remaining 11 and a half minutes, there's going to be a lot of mixing and matching with all the different pit stop times and pit stop positionings and who pitted when and the lap times. It's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top, because Tyler at the front of the field at the moment still has not pitted. No,
he hasn't. Now, car 34, David Sven-Thompson, is being given a penalty. Would you like to guess what that might be for, Piers?
Penalty for not stopping long enough.
No, coming in too early. He was the first one in, remember, and he did come in too early. Now, that means I think there's going to be one going out to the other car that pitted, who I have to...
It was SR1, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I forget which one it was now, but I think they're going to be also given a penalty for that as well, I reckon. We'll wait and see, but car 34, a stop-go penalty for an early pit stop. So they did, I think, postpone the opening of the pit window, and that is what has caught a few people out. Here comes Tommy Gore, though, driver of car number 24, up into the Goddard's hairpin, and maybe, just maybe, he's going to come out of all of this with the race lead, because look, there is Peter Tyler in the pit lane, there is Tommy Gore on the track, and that's going to be no contest.
Yeah, Gore has gone through. Gore is running the Jamaican flags on the sides of his wings, and Jamaica not known for its rain, but clearly isn't hampering his skill in the driving conditions, because he has gone, well, he went purple on the last lap, and in fact that was the fastest lap of the race, although it may be shortly beaten by Hayden Chance. No, it wasn't actually. So yeah, fastest lap of the race at the moment. Gore on a 43.0. Chance 3/10 behind a 43.3, so that gap is actually slightly extended.
I can't think of that many top flight Jamaican racing drivers, to be honest. So Tommy flying the flag proudly for Jamaica, and well, could he be the next big thing in Jamaican motorsport? Let's hope so. We are 2/3 of the way through the race already. There's been so much to talk about, and actually relatively little of it out on the track. But now everyone's made their mandatory pit stop. The pit window is closed, and that means that we can now try and figure out exactly what order they are all in. This is the car that leads the way. That's David Sven-Thompson. So by pitting early, Piers, there was a massive advantage, but of course he pitted too early, and he's now going to have to come in and serve that stop-go penalty. But you can see why he did it, because it got him out in front.
Yes, but you can also shortly see why he shouldn't have done it, because that penalty is going to be more than the gain that he had, which is how penalties work, I suppose. And it was a good idea, but just unfortunately this time didn't work out because the timing was just slightly out.
So I think Tommy Gore leads the way, because Peter Tyler's going to drop down the order. David Sven-Thompson hasn't yet pitted. He officially leads on track, but has this penalty hanging over his head. He should see that now on the starting gantry. There'll be a board and a flag that's been waved to him as well at some point, I'd have thought. So David Sven-Thompson leads, but with a penalty to be served. Tommy Gore should be the next car through. However, Hayden Chance on this lap is going quite a bit quicker than him. He's taking chunks of time actually out of Tommy, and is about to set a new fastest lap. Gore comes through in second place on the road. A 1:43.829 is his lap time. The next one through is Hayden Chance, and he does a 42.9. Piers, he's 9/10 quicker, but 8.6 seconds adrift with 8 3/4 minutes to go.
This is going to be tight if that gap continues at, or that lap time deficit continues at 8 9/10. It's going to be pretty tasty by the end of the race, but I'd rather be in Gore's position than in Chance's at this stage. You'd rather have track position, because at least you can then drive to your own limits.
Can be a challenge though, I reckon, in these conditions, can't it, where you're really trying to gauge the grip levels corner by corner, lap by lap. Tommy Gore is all on his own. He's got no one really to chase after because he's leading the race, whereas Hayden Chance is clearly in the groove. He's up to speed, he's really pushing hard and putting in good lap times, and if he does start to get closer to Tommy Gore, he will then have someone to gauge his pace off. So Tommy Gore sort of out in no man's land at the moment. Maybe he could be going quicker, but he just doesn't really know it.
It's interesting because some drivers would prefer to have someone, a carrot to chase, and other drivers, potentially like Gore, would rather just be out there completely on your own, concentrating on your own driving, because you as a decent driver, which most of these are in the Hagerty Radical Championship UK, that they're racing, they can feel the grip. You know if you're on the limit of grip, and all you have to do is drive to the limit of grip on each corner, make sure that you're searching for the grip and keeping an eye out for the driest lines, and if you can do that on your own, then it's a lot less stress. It's a lot stress-free than rather than having to physically know you need to push.
In the SR1 class, by the way, George Nutten leads the way, but only by 6/10 over Theo Mercurius, with Tom Wood 8/10 behind them. So the top three in the SR1s are worth trying to catch up on if we get a chance. David Sven-Thompson leads by 11 seconds. Tommy Gore now sets a new fastest lap, but that's immediately beaten by Hayden Chance and beaten by a full second again. So he's about a second a lap quicker. 7 minutes to go. I don't think that, well, there are not going to be enough laps at that rate. We've got 7 minutes to go, and he's 7.5 seconds back. So needs a bit more than that in order to close in. David Sven-Thompson still hasn't come in to serve this penalty, so he might try and just win the race on the road and argue the toss later, but I don't think that's really going to work. But yeah, lots to talk about here, and the SR1 class, we mustn't forget about them, because that could develop into a really tasty battle as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having a look at the SR1 battle if we can find it on circuit, but it is great to see Man and Machine at pretty much harmony. I think potentially even Gore knows he's got that big of a gap from his pit board that he doesn't need to push completely. Because basically, if he carries on at the pace he does without making a mistake, he's probably going to win this race. So he might just be concentrating on doing just that.
How easy is it to spot those pit boards, though, when you're whizzing past the pits at these speeds? You're getting a face full of rain and spray. It must be easy sometimes to not be able to pick it out in the flash of colour as you come past the pits.
Agreed, but it's much easier to do it from the lead than it is from any other position.
True, very true.
And Gore has that privilege.
That was Ashley Gordon, sorry, off the road at, I think, the old hairpin potentially, so he's managed to get going again.
Yeah, I think Was it turn 1? Redgate.
I just caught a flash of, I'm not sure which, it might have been actually. Anyway, he was running in, I think, about 7th or 8th place within the SROs, but no more after that spin. There is the gap between the leaders, David Sven Thompson and Tommy Gore. Tommy Gore was about to come across the line. He's 8.5 seconds back. He just did a 1:42.5, so he might actually catch Thompson anyway, because he's about 3 seconds a lap quicker than the race leader on the road, and he was 1.5 seconds slower that time than Hayden Chance. The gap is 6 seconds.
Well, the gap, I mean, the lap times are coming down and down. Hayden Chance with another fastest lap. That time, 1.5 seconds faster.
That's more like it. That might just make it doable, right?
That is going to be close, but yes, it'll certainly start to get in the mirrors of Gore, which is, I think, Hayden's only chance here is to just go as fast as he can to try and show that he's gapping or reducing that gap to Gore enough where Gore starts to look in his mirrors and go, oh my God, where's Hayden coming from? I need to pull my finger out and then potentially make a mistake himself. George
Nutton, by the way, now a second clear of Theo Mercurius in the SR1s. That gap went out on the previous lap. The other gap that went out slightly in Sector 1 on this lap was with the one between Gore and Chance. Gore was actually half a tenth quicker than Hayden Chance in Sector 1. The Sector 2 times will come in momentarily. A 40.2 and a personal best for Tommy Gore. Hayden Chance will come by in a moment or two. A 40.3, so Hayden 2 tenths slower on this lap so far. Maybe he's made a mistake. Maybe he's just hit a metaphorical wall as far as how fast he can go. Or maybe he's just settling for what he thinks might be a safe podium finish.
Or maybe it is those tyre pressures. Maybe they did go higher. Maybe Valor Racing decided, which is Hayden Chance's team, Valor decided to go slightly higher on those tyre pressures to give him some pace at the start of the race, hoping he would get away, but not counting on the fact that Gore would have a slow pit stop. There it is.
There's David Sven Thompson. Yeah, so it's a stop-go, actually, so I hope he doesn't think it's a drive-through.
Oh, hang on. People were waving him on. Oh, but it's a stop-go at the end of the pit lane with the marshals, isn't it? Not with your team.
Yes.
So there we can see the marshal. Let's see how well he executes this. It's quite hard to actually stop, pull the clutch in and then go straight away again in these cars, and he's managed not to stall, so that's a good shot. That's a good, not lost as much time as he potentially could, and he's going to be right out in the fight and potentially still have a fight at a decent result. Yeah, that was somewhere just behind Pete Tyler, Mark Williams and Zalonga, I think, wasn't it? So Chris Preen's lost a lot of ground, hasn't he? Must have had extra time to serve in the pit lane. He's down in 10th position, but that's why you have to read the regs, isn't it, Piers? When you get a penalty like that, where do you go? Is it a stop-go? Is it a drive-through? Do I stop at my garage? Is there a penalty box? Lots that drivers have to think about in a race, not just about going quickly. Chris Breen diving up the inside of one of the SR1s. That was actually the SR1 leader. This is not what George Nutton needs. He's battling away with Chris Breen, who's in a different class, but the next car behind him is Theo Mercurius. No doubt about it, Piers. That really cost Nutton a lot of time. It certainly cost Nutton time, because Nutton had to get out of the throttle on the exit, and you can see Mercurius right behind in the number 74 with the black and turquoise highlights. Vera Tools sponsored car is right up his gearbox now, and is going to be looking to at least apply the pressure and potentially make a move by the end of this lap.
Yep, towards McLean's they go, so Chris Preen makes the move. That didn't actually gain him any points. He is still only running 18 class. It's the two cars behind him which are fighting. Look, you can see in the background there, the two darker coloured cars. They are the top two in the SR1 category. Number 45, George Nutton, and number 74, Theo Mercurius. Has George Nutton won his class yet this season? I'm not entirely sure, because he sort of looked in a little bit to this position, but having got there, he now absolutely wants to try and defend for the final 2 minutes to claim what would be a fantastic class victory.
Yeah, that would be a great victory for Nutton. But Mercurius has got a great exit out of the Fogerty S's and is now alongside, going into the Melbourne hairpin on the inside. Braking late, can they stop in time? Mercurius has done a great job of stopping on the apex, but Nutton going deep and cutting back late is going to get an overlap, and I think he might be passed by Goddard. No, not quite. Is it going to be an overlap? There's still an overlap, so Mercurius will hold it up the inside. This is going to be slippy on the inside for Mercurius. He needs to watch out, just wash wide, and then Nutton will do exactly the same thing he did in the previous corner. We're going to be side by side once again. Oh, down towards Redgate. No, can't quite get the overlap. Tucks into the slipstream instead. I'm pretty sure that Nutton has not won a race this year in the SR1 category, and this could be his best opportunity to do so, but he's got to try and find a way back ahead of Theo Mercurius, who again defends nicely through Redgate, doesn't run too wide on the exit. There's no opportunity for Nutton to get alongside, and now with a face full of spray and maybe a bit of dirty air down the Craner curves, he may struggle to stay with the race leader. Yeah, you can see that gap just growing slightly as they head through
the high-speed downhill sweeping sequence of corners, and Theo Mercurius now looks to try and make good his escape. At the front of the field, by the way, within the SR3s, the gap is down to 4.4 seconds on the previous lap, nearly 2 seconds gained by Hayden Chance. I think he's just going to run out of time, maybe by a lap.
Yeah, it's going to be close, but Chance is chomping away, going faster and faster every lap, every sector. Purple first sector, purple second sector. Oh, he's taken nearly a second up to... God, that's going to be nearly 2 seconds this lap already, and it hasn't even crossed the line yet. In fact, that is the gap.
Yeah, that is the gap. Let's see. So Gore does a 42.5, a 40.4, 2 seconds quicker. Last lap begins, and he's 2.2 seconds behind. He might just, if he puts the lap of his life together here, Hayden Chance, he might just get there going into the final sector, but he's leaving himself very little time to actually execute an overtake.
Yeah, popcorn out, everyone. This could be a great finish to the race. And there's a lap car that could get involved. He's caught it right in the middle of the old hairpin. This is the worst thing that Gore could have hoped for.
Oh, and he doesn't know which way it's going to go. It's not moving out of the way either. This is disaster for Tommy Gore. Is this going to give Hayden Chance his opportunity? Up towards McLean's corner they go. The SR1 car tries now to stay out of the way. Tommy Gore dives through, but there's no doubt that will have cost him some time. Yes, 0.8 of a second lost in the first sector alone, and Hayden Chance is straight up the inside and clears it before they get to Coppice corner. The gap now can be measured in feet, not seconds, as they head out of Coppice and down the exhibition straight for the final time.
Oh, the gap. He's in the slipstream now, Hayden Chance. All you can see him weaving around. I think he's just trying to get in the mirrors of Gore, because Gore will know that is a direct competitor for the race win, and it's going to be so close that it's all about this final sector. The gap is too large to mount an attack for Chance, but if Gore keeps it clean, it's still going to be tight over the line.
Could come down to the very last corner, couldn't it? He gained another 0.7 in the middle sector despite negotiating the back marker. No mistakes now from Tommy Gore, and he might just be able to do this. Out of Goddard's they go, out of Melbourne they go, up towards Goddard's for the final time, and I think he might just be about to do that. Oh, he's locked up, he's gone straight on wide. Where is Hayden Chance? He's not quite going to get there. Another lap, it could have been a different story, but somehow, by the skin of his teeth, Tommy Gore hangs on to get the victory. Wow, what a nerve-wracking finish. The eventual winning margin was just 0.6 of a second, and it is Tommy Gore who manages to come out on top. What a fantastic grandstand ending to the race. And well, Hayden Chance threw everything at that. He was well back, nearly 10 seconds back, I think, when he came out of the pit lane, and came up just 0.6 short.
Yeah, the SR1s aren't done yet either, because that is Tom Wood trying to fight for second place. Again, it's going to be almost as close as it was for the lead of the SR3s, but Tom Wood looking to the outside of the last corner. He'll be looking for a cutback, but the run to the line is short. A little bit of a wobble. Theo Mercurius giving it the biggest out the last corner and taking the win, and it's close for the second place, but it is eventually Nutton over Wood.
And breathe, everyone. What a race that was. Do you know what? I do enjoy wet racing. Some categories don't need wet racing. The radical racing, in fairness, in the dry has been very entertaining, but throw in the wet conditions, the well-timed safety car, or badly timed as far as some drivers are concerned, the pit window and those success penalties, it all came together to create a perfect storm, didn't it? A great result for Tommy Gore. Theo Mercurius really having to fight that time for the SR1 victory. It's not quite a clean sweep. Tom Wood beat him in race 2 earlier on this morning, but it is 2 wins from 3 for Mercurius to round out his season, and for Theo that should be more than enough to give him the SR1 championship as well. Across the line come a couple of the stragglers, but what a fantastic race. Tommy Gore the winner, Hayden Chance second, Peter Tyler, by the way, on the podium. I'm not sure if Pete's had a podium so far this season,
but his penalty will come into force.
But he'll have a penalty. Peter Tyler...
Was it Tyler that pitted early?
Well, no, I don't think it was. He stayed out, didn't he? A little bit later, got that clean air. So no, it was Sven Thompson, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, confused. But here's the provisional results run through.
Yes, no, I was confused myself for a second. No, Peter Tyler, I think we'll get to keep that podium. It's Tommy Gore with the win, Hayden Chance second, Peter Tyler third, and in fourth position, actually bouncing back nicely from the way that his weekend started with that disqualification, is Jacek Zelonka in fourth place. Fifth position then goes the way of the number 34 of David Sven-Thompson. Really? Despite a stop-go, I think he has. He managed to get a top 5 finish after all of that. 6th position then for the number 14 of John McLeod. 7th, Mark Williams. 8th for Chris Preen. He'll be disappointed with that. Whilst in 9th position, it was the SR1 winner, Theo Mercouris, in the number 74 from George Nutton, who just held on to 2nd place and a 5th position within the top 10 overall. Tom Wood, 3rd that time around in the SR1 category. After a bit of an up-and-down weekend for him, McAlpine was next in his SR3, ahead of Brooks and Chris Headlam, with Williams, Ockenden, Lees, Ashley Gaunt, the last car on the lead lap. Then it was the number 22 of Lowe, Andy Lowe, who came through in 19th position with Darren Nutton completing the top 20. Then it was the number 8 of John Davis ahead of Jason Rishover, who we saw retiring with those issues. There was also a retirement in the tricky conditions for Oscar Joyce, also for the number 41 of Bradley Gaunt, whilst never really making the start of the race, having pulled off on the second of the green flag laps, was the luckless Ben Casely. Well, a fantastic way to round out the weekend and the season here at Donington Park. My thanks to Piers Pryor for helping me along through all of the action. Plenty of it there has been in the Hagerty Radical Cup UK this weekend. They'll all be back next year in 2024, where perhaps a new crop of drivers will be challenging for championship honours. But for now, for those of you who have tuned in today and through the rest of the season, we thank you for your support, and we'll see you next year.